Continuing with Module 5, API and User Management. Other than these APIs that we have here, the Clash one and V2Ray one, we have a new one, an interesting one. And if we go to the very bottom, we see SSM API, which stands for shadowsocks Server Management API. So it's part of the Service Global Object. Opening that, we see that we have three types of service: DERP for the tail scale, the resolve, which is system defect for connecting to that, and then we have SSM API. So SSM API stands for shadowsocks Server Management API, and as part of the API for shadowsocks, we can see here, actually it's really simple, just basic CRUD like the user list, and then add the user, delete the user, and see the stats for a specific users or delete user. So you can see it's really simple. That's it. I mean, this is the API has been added, but it has been added since version 1.12. And since we are using singbox 1.12.8, singbox version 1.12.8, we have access to this API as server side, because the server side that we have version is the same one. So 1.12.8 probably, I mean, for 1.12 itself is possible, but see some bugs still. I prefer 1.12.8 for the implementation. Also, I have changed the configuration. Let me show both of the configuration. And I removed the HY2 connection, the client and server, and I have enabled the shadowsocks client and server. So the type for the client is the shadowsocks, the tag is SS, the server port, the method, which is the encryption of socks. We know that shadowsocks is a encrypted socks tunnel, and the password, which is a combination of two pass for the shadowsocks server. The first one is the server, and the second one is the user password. So this password is the for server side, and this one is for the user, and they have been separated by a colon. So that's it. And then the server side, we have the shadowsocks type, we have the server, we have the listening on the interfaces that we have, and then the method for encryption, and the password, which is the first one. So this first password also comes or goes to the password one, to the this key one as the first one. And then we have the user, which is user one. We ignore the username, and then the password for the user is the second part here. So by combination, it connects to the server, and this is the user that we want to manage. And there's no management, it's just the very simple one. Even there's no route, we just want to test the shadowsocks connection, user and client, for the first time. So run singbox C API is part of the API, and then shadowsocks server. So let's also run this singbox run C API shadowsocks shadowsocks client, and then requesting to 2080. We see that's working. So let's add more to this configuration. So the API is part of the service, and here's the configuration. We have the server in the service one, and then matching to the shadowsocks server inbound tag that we have. It has a cache file and then TLS1, which we can enable. So the service one is the service, and the type, which is one of these. So SMS API, I have already have the service. Let me show you JQ sample service one API. This is a configuration. Let me copy this, coming to the server, to the bottom, a comma, and then pasting the service one. So we have the service, the API type, the listen one, which is just local one, 6000, and then the cache pass, which is a configuration for the servers that's going to cache, which is shadowsocks server, and then the server mapping the request to the inbound that you have, which is SS server. So that's the tag for the shadowsocks server that we have. We have two inbound, the 8090 and this one. So this is a simple map, and we're going to test this. So when we run it for the first time, and then run this for the first time. It seems the same. I mean, we don't feel any kind of inbound. What is this? It can connect. TCP connection. What happened? Invalid one. Yeah, the API is not able to be matched with the inbound, and because of this we have to do something else here also. We have to enable managed true, which means it's a server that is managed by the shadowsocks API. So let's rerun it. The users and destination option are not supported in this server. So what does that mean? We have the servers, everything is okay. Let me check the JSON if you have no problem with the JSON configuration. No problem, it's okay. So cache, let me remove it if we have any cache file. Yeah, we had. So yeah, everything is okay. We have the user. It was working fine. Let me run it again. Probably the cache was the issue because I tested before the video. Initialization inbound users and destination option are not supported in managed servers. Initialization servers. So it tells me, and the error is that you can have a user here when the inbound is managed. Let me remove the managed one and run it again. That's okay right now. So it tells me that if you have a user defined, it's not manageable by the API. So remove the user, which we'll be testing in a few minutes to see the results. So it's going to work right now. We enable the API, but it doesn't allow us to use it because the server should manage the user by itself. I mean, the API should be the manager for the user, not statically adding the user. So keep in mind that one. Let me go to the configuration for the API and the request shadowsocks server management API and test it. So going back to the server here, which is the same one, curl get http localhost 6000. If we request, we see 404 page not found, which means we have been able to connect to the server. Let me close that. So it's not available 6000, but right now it's available. You can see 6000 here, but it's not able to get the endpoint. And the reason is we have to provide other paths. I didn't find it on the documentation itself, but on internet after some search, that we have to provide the server and then version 1. And then you see the API version 1, server is singbox 1.12.8, which is the current version. And also you can see that we see the request here in singbox log. So that's the thing that we have. The first thing that we should notice, we should request to the server in v1, even though if I open the file, we set the very first endpoint, the just forward slash should be mapped to the server SS server that we have. And let's run it again. Now if we request for users, it says it's empty. We do not have any user. But if we run it here, it says actually we have the user. Let me run it again, because we have the cache file and the cache file is empty. And that's the reason it doesn't allow us, because it's managed by the when we close the server, now we have a file named cache file automatically by default, and the user part is empty, and that's the reason we have to add the user here. So we are going to open the file that we have. As I said, we enable the managed one, managed true, which means this is going to be managed by the API, and then opening our cache file, going to the very bottom, and then opening the user one. We are going to add our user here, and here the user that we have actually, and then delete the user part. We do not need, because it's going to be managed by the API, which its default file or kind of database is this cache file. So we paste it here, and we should notice this is an object, not an array. So this configuration is not valid if we use it. Let me run it again. It's okay, but it tells me that the beginning is not a match. It's a kind of key inside key, which is not a valid. I'm not sure even if the JSON can parse that. So API shadowsocks server, which is no the cache file, the cache file. So load this one, the cache file. Again, it made it 0, the cache file again. When we run the managed one, we enabled the keyboard managed, it makes it somehow clear again, start from scratch. So let me paste it again to the user one. Oh, probably I should copy the user. So this syntax is not correct. Let me check that. It's okay. So it tells me the JQ says that the syntax is not correct because it's not an array. So the right format actually is just the username, a comma, and then the password, which is I will tell you how to create the pass one. This is the syntax actually for having users on the cache file. If we check it again with JSON, it says that we have extra brackets. So right now it's okay. And how to create this passkey with OpenSSL, rand, base 64, and length is 16. So this is going to create this pass file. So the user is user1 and the pass is the same pass we added here. You can see this is the pass br, you can see br. So we do not touch the client side, but we run it again, and this time we run the sandbox, and notice that we do not have any user defined here. We just added the user here and also managed enable here, and part of the service that we have, which is SSM API, also we have the cache file. This file is going to be loaded by the shadowsocks API, which is able to map with the shadowsocks server inbound that we have here. So let's rerun it again. Sandbox run C API shadowsocks server. Now we should able to connect. We have a successful connection, but this time if we check the users, we have the users. So we have our users. So let's run it to consume a few bytes from the server. If we run this again, we do not see the consumption of data, but if we check for user one, which is if we go to the API, it says we can check for users endpoint and then a specific user. It gets back information about that user. So which is the user one, actually user one, and you can see the user, the passkey or unique password, and then the download bytes, and then uplink or downloading or downlink actually, and uplink for this specific user. So when the user these are 0, and after checking if they were non-zero, we can somehow log or write to our database that this user has been connected for the first time. And then after a few while, periodically checking and somehow summing up this downlink and uplink, and the whole total traffic has been used by this user. Also, you can see the TCP session for this specific user. So this is a very basic one for talking about the shadowsocks client and server and how can we have the API. So far we have covered dynamic routing from the client side connecting to multiple servers, and this video also in Clash and the sandbox at server side. Well, we can use, for example, V2 API with the V2 API. Actually, on experimental one, we prefer to use shadowsocks because it's much more lighter to connect. Also, we can have much more secure connection with that. And later we will talking about the shadowsocks in combination with shadow TLS, which makes it perfect to bypass almost any firewalls. So we do not use V2 API, but we prefer to use shadow shadowsocks API has been enabled in version 1.12, part of the service object, global object in Sandbox. So this is SSM API. That's it for more somehow collecting the users and writing it to a database or something like that. It's part of our final project that we write script, bash script, or you can if you are familiar with Python or other programming language, you can make this script that you want in those programming language to have a full CRUD operation. Right now, if, for example, you can see the user just as a test, I can delete this user. So even I can connect it. It tries to go to version 6, but it's okay. I can restart it again to be sure it's fine. Let me delete this user just to show you that we have basic CRUD. Delete. And before deleting it, making sure JQ cache, you can see that I have the user here. Run the server again, run the test again. Let me delete this user. You can see the request to delete this user. No need. If I close the server, I'm not sure this is a bug or this is a feature, but still I have access. The user still is able to connect. But if I restart the server, which means closing the server and rerun it again, no longer I am able, because the cache file has been cleared and there is no user in that. So without touching that, rerun it again, and we are not able to connect because the user is not valid. So we can add the user again by adding the user and sending a passkey to that. But this is part of the whole CRUD operation, and writing scripts are part of the final project that we are going to make a VPN client Pro with configuration and how to manage the users, and then the traffic, and then the expiration time, and then initialization time, and all these is part of the final project that we have with this Sandbox Proxy Advanced. That's it. Let's continue our journey on Sandbox Proxy Advanced.